from self-discovery to unapologetic passion, from inner strength to outward influence. It's Your Turn charts the journey of empowerment. Welcome to our series, where the book comes to life. In each episode, we explore a chapter's wisdom through real stories. We uncover the strategies that turn potential into power. And we witness how one woman's journey can inspire countless others. Prepare to see yourself in these pages and voices, because with every story, we're reminded it's your turn to write the next chapter.
Welcome back to the It's Your Turn book interview series. And our next guest is Bhavna Toor. She's a dynamic leader in the realm of mindful leadership and women's empowerment. As the founder and CEO of SheNomics, Bhavna has dedicated her career to helping over 100,000 women worldwide lead with courage, compassion, and mindfulness. Bhavna is a renowned expert in women's leadership, having trained high potential leaders at more than 150 Fortune 500 companies. Her insights have been shared on platforms like TEDx, earning her recognition as a LinkedIn top voice for gender equity. She holds an MBA from New York University Stern School of Business and has been honored with multiple awards, including the World Economic Forum's Iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All. Under Bhavna's leadership, SheNomics combines outer impact with deep inner work, offering transformative programs such as Women Leading from Within, The Conscious Woman, and The Visible Woman, which have empowered over 10,000 women in 250 leading organizations. As a global citizen who has lived in 8 countries, Bhavna brings a rich cultural sensitivity to her work. She is deeply committed to social impact, donating 10% of SheNomics' revenue to support young women. Her Lead Like a Girl fellowship has positively influenced over 350 young women across Asia and Africa, benefiting 20,000 others through fellow-led projects. In addition to her professional achievements, Bhavna has diverse experiences as a former Miss India New York, an actress, a dancer, a model, and a TV host. Her upcoming book, The Conscious Choice: 100 Ideas for Living and Leading Mindfully, aims to inspire a global movement towards conscious leadership. So join me in welcoming Bhavna Toor, whose visionary work continues to pave the way for a more inclusive and compassionate future. Bhavna, welcome. I am so honored to have you here for the It's Your Turn book interview and to receive your support. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully, and thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here and having this conversation with you, Helena.
Bhavna, your life reads like a novel. It's basically also manifesting absolutely everything that I bring in the book. And so I can't wait to hear from your experience and especially also your vision on how to build a life by design. I see so many women like stuck in where they are and knowing that there could be more and that actually they want more, but they just don't know where to start. And It's Your Turn wants to give that guide, to bring that guide, to also bring these examples of powerful women who already did that. And so here you are. So please tell us a little bit more about how you look at designing a life.
It's such a beautiful question and such an important question because you're right. If we're not conscious and if we're not fully aware, it's very easy to just go through life with on autopilot or just going with the flow. But if you can bring a greater sense of awareness, one can indeed create a life that feels more aligned to you and your highest values and a vision that is most exciting and meaningful to you. I think for me, the way it happened was I remember I would say for the first 3 decades of my life, I think I was just pretty much just going with the flow, had a wonderful upbringing, grew up all around the world because my father was a diplomat with the Indian Foreign Service. So grew up around the world, eventually ended up in the US and spent over a decade in the US and just had just the most wonderful experiences, the kind of experiences one would want, especially in their 20s. I did my foundational education was done there, and then the my first close to a decade of professional experience was also in New York, working in finance. And then of course I went on to get my MBA from NYU Stern. And for me, a pivotal moment or a turning point in my life, interestingly, was towards the end of my business school experience. I remember one day I went to this interview because at the time I was thinking, let's go with the flow. And I looked around me and everyone was interviewing for these traditional opportunities in either consulting or investment banking. And I'd already done finance. So I was like, okay, let's look for options in consulting. And here I am in the interview sitting in front of this lovely woman, although not entirely sure what I'm doing there, but I'm thinking, okay, let's just give this a try. And at one point in the interview, she turns to me and she says, "Tell me about a time in your life when you failed and what you learned from that experience." And that question just stopped me in my tracks. You would think this was a standard interview question that I would have prepared for, but I had not. And at this point, I'm just going through all the stories from my life, and I'm thinking, surely there's got to be something I can share. Surely something that will make me sound eloquent at this point of time. And I couldn't come up with a single story. So I just fumbled my way through the rest of the interview. Went home feeling completely dejected. Sure enough, I didn't get that position. But what that did for me was I then reflected for days on end on why couldn't I answer such a seemingly straightforward question? And I
Mm,
realized the reason why I couldn't answer her question is because failure was the one thing I was avoiding my entire life.
mm,
And it comes back to that conditioning that you mentioned, Helena, in terms of, especially in so many cultures, and especially the way I was raised, we were taught to avoid failure at all costs. So looking back, I realized I only ever tried at things where I knew there was a high probability of success. So I never truly experienced failure in that sense. And so that led me to ask myself, all right, okay, so I've been avoiding failure this whole time. Where has that led me and what has that got me? Sure, some amount of success on paper. Sure, some things look good. But am I really truly happy and fulfilled? And can I
mm.
really genuinely say I'm living a life by design? Coming back to your question.
Yeah.
And the answer for me was a clear, big fat no. And that's when, for me, for the first time, I realized something has to change drastically. I cannot go on like this. I cannot just keep going on living this way on autopilot. And I do need to live my life by design. What that could look like, how I can do that, I didn't have an answer to that immediately, but I knew it meant me completely going away, unplugging from the life that I was living at that point, and taking the time to reflect, taking the time to experiment, taking the time to really ask the deeper questions in life in terms of who am I? How can I make a bigger impact in the world? And that's when I decided I would leave my comfortable life in New York behind and go off on an adventure to India. And so I moved to India. And following that, for years on end, I was on this search of
Mm,
trying to find those answers. And for me, I think what eventually brought clarity was me embracing the path of mindfulness. I
mm,
eventually, through various practices, found mindfulness practices, went on a Vipassana meditation retreat. And for after 10 days of just looking within, I was like, yeah, I think all along in my life, I've been looking for answers outside and did not really find the answer. But looking within, for the first time, I was starting to get some clarity about, irrespective of whatever the societal expectations are, what do I really want? What makes
mm,
me feel happy? What makes me come alive? What is the vision and the legacy that I truly want to leave if what the world thinks is completely taken out of the equation.
Mhm.
And that's when, for me, I slowly started to get the answers. And once I started to get the answers, I knew that this is such a powerful way to live that I knew I wanted to support other women to be able to do the same. And that's how I ended up founding SheNomics with this mission to help other women also, as you said, live by design.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that story, Bhavna. It's amazing how a simple question during a job interview can really shift things. And I believe that a lot of us women have those experiences, like something that is waking us up. It's like a call. And yet sometimes it's very difficult to do something with that, because we were talking about success. You were like a very successful professional woman in New York. People looking at you said, whoa, she has everything. She has all her ducks in a row. And this is what we have very often as women. We are professionally very successful, at least successful in the definition, again, that society is putting there, in a very linear way. Sometimes you have your promotion path, and this is what you have to do, and this is how you have to step forward, and then you have to have this MBA, and then you can make the next move, and then you do this. And this is basically how the world is designed. And we try to fit in there once again because we don't like the confrontation. We don't like to be too disruptive, but that means that we actually are not doing what we really want to do. And so I'm sure that you have the same. I meet a lot of successful women that are absolutely not happy. Why, you would say, when you are successful in the real definition, then you are also joyful. Then you feel the abundance of your success and you feel the gratitude. And a lot of women don't feel it because the success is not what really is for them, designed for them. So a very important thing that I do for myself and also for others and also in the book is to work around how you define success for yourself. And you say it so beautiful, by looking inside instead of using the criteria and the parameters and the benchmarks that are set there for whatever reason, and that are set there like maybe or the last that are alive the last 200 years and that don't serve us anymore. So how do you recognize that in yourself and in your work with women, that definition of success, to reframe that basically, how difficult that is? And why do you feel it is so difficult for so many people?
I think it's difficult because there is so much of unlearning that we all need to do. Because, like you said, it's so we we're dancing to a certain beat or dancing to a certain tune, and we don't realize we didn't even choose the music that we're dancing to. So the first step is that awareness, building that awareness, and then doing the unlearning of what is the song that I want to dance to. And that, of course, then invites so many other questions. I think in my work, it really has been about taking women along this journey very systematically across, helping them uncover several pillars of self-awareness.
Mm.
And if you look at some of the key pillars, those can be a brilliant starting point in starting to then define what success is really is. What is your authentic definition of success?
Mm.
And so I think some of these pillars are things like, for me, a really powerful one is, of course, knowing your values. And it's not always an easy question to answer, does require a lot of reflection in terms of, at the end of the day, what do you really want to be known for? What will really truly make you feel like your life has been worthwhile and you have lived it, or you have shown up in a way that makes you feel proud? If one can identify that, I feel like that alone is such a huge guiding light in
Mm.
terms of like, how do I tell if I am successful? For me, I know that is one of my measures of success. And in fact, it's a question I keep coming back to every single day. It's a reflection I have both first thing in the morning and the last thing in the day. First thing in the morning, how do I want to show up today? And for me, for
Setting your
example,
intention.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And so for me, I know it is every day, it is about showing up with courage. It's about showing up with an abundant mindset. It's about showing up with mindfulness, and it's showing up with kindness towards others as well as myself.
Yeah.
And so, first thing in the morning, for me, my question is, okay, how will I choose to express these values today?
Mhm.
What is it going to mean for me to show courage today? And sometimes it's something really small. It's showing up. For example, it could be something as small as showing up on video on a day when you're just feeling so tired and you'd rather hide, but choosing to show yourself to the world could be a small act of courage. Kindness. Sometimes kindness would be actually pushing yourself to do more. Sometimes kindness is allowing yourself to rest that day because you've been working so hard for so long. Discipline is a really big one for me as well, in terms of just, am I really showing up with integrity for all the goals that are important to me? And then finally, abundant mindset, whether, and that's both for self as well as for others, because it is so easy. It's so easy. And again, this is a function of conditioning for any of us to think that you're not enough, you're not doing enough, you're not good enough. And that scarcity mindset can become such a big limiter and such a big
Mhm.
impediment to you living your dreams. And so to consciously and intentionally choose an abundant mindset and to consciously say, no, I am enough. I believe in myself. I'm choosing to see my potential rather than what is lacking. So that very intentional exercise, both first thing in the morning and then even at the end of the day, just a quick reflection on, so how did I express these values today? Am I
Mhm.
happy? Am I at peace with how I express these values today? If not, what can I do differently tomorrow? So it's something you want to keep coming back to over and over and over again. But that is for me the bedrock or the foundation of living a self-aware life. And for me, that's one of my biggest benchmarks or north stars, if you will, for
Yeah.
success. So just like that, there are of course other pillars as well, but I think I want to at least offer that because I know that is very powerful. And I think what so the first step is of course asking yourself what those values are, and the second step then of course is actually having the courage to live according to the
Mhm.
values that are most important
Yeah.
to you.
Thank you for sharing that, Bhavna. I think this is absolutely extremely important. It's also a chapter in the book about your values because a lot of us, we don't do the work for the values in terms of we think of values as like they're these general things like justice and equality and respect. And those are universal values that are very important. But they're like um, evidence. What we are talking about are the values that are really important for us in order to align with our vision on life, our vision on other people, our vision on ourselves. And then this is a very interesting exploration. And the second thing I see is that even if we have those values, sometimes we don't know what they mean or how they show up. So, a very relevant practice also, and this is also referred to in my book, is to create your definition again of what does it mean to be grateful? What does it mean to be mindful? What does it mean to be kind? And how does that show up in my life? And when do I feel that these values are inflicted or are in conflict? Because this is absolutely creating that awareness in a very deep sense. And then, like you say, having your morning and evening practice in terms of how am I going to manifest my values today? It is extremely powerful. And you call it your North Star. I also call it my inner compass because
Yes.
this is basically giving direction. It is defining our actions. It's defining our choices and decisions. And we tend so many times we tend to make choices or decide things based again on what we feel that others are expecting from us, or society or the system is expecting from us, because there's so much judgment. And so we are like a boat without a compass. But when we can work with our values and our strong beliefs as our inner compass, and trust our wisdom and our intuition, then basically we can make our choices without being everywhere mentally or emotionally. Does that make sense? Does that resonate?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So how did you decide on the values? As an example, just for women that say, yes, I feel that, but where do I start? So how did you become aware of your most important values, of the ones that are really aligned with your leadership and with your legacy?
So I think there are a couple of ways in which one can arrive at or bring awareness to the values that are most important. One question for sure is looking back at your life and asking, who are the people that have really made a huge impact on you? Who are the people that you deeply admire? And to ask why and why. Because, like, for example, for me, when I engaged in this reflection, one individual that really stood out for me very strongly is my father. He came from nothing. He grew up in complete poverty in India, but he worked really hard. He built this amazing life because of his hard work and determination, got this really incredible job in the Indian Foreign Service, and through that was able to lift his family out of poverty and really provide a great life for all of us. But all through it all, more than that, I think what really made a difference to me is growing up, all I remember is my parents were always taking care of others. And they never forgot about the responsibility that they have to take care of their community back home. So I only always saw them giving and helping others. And so and it just, for me, that was so deeply inspiring. And so when fast forward to when I really started reflecting on, okay, what are the values that are most important to me? That if someone was reading a eulogy for me, that if this value was what they mentioned in association with my name and how I've lived my life, then for sure I would want that, this idea of living in a way that really makes a significant positive contribution to others. Call
Mhm.
it generosity, call it impact, call it uh, uplifting others. There's so many ways to define it, but for me, I knew that is something that had inspired me throughout my life, and for that reason, I knew for me that's going to be a core anchor for my life and how I choose to define success for myself. So I think a large part of it is asking yourself, who are the people you hold in highest regard and why? Whether it's loved ones or even other people that you admire from a distance, because I think that really tells you what resonates deeply with you. Because the people we admire says so much more about us than it says even about them, because it's like a mirror to you. It's telling you what makes your heart sing and what you want for yourself as well. So I
Yeah.
think that's definitely one way in which to arrive at that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that metaphor of the mirror. Absolutely. It's saying much more about us than it says about the people, because it's what is really resonates, it's what is bringing us energy. So this is a very good benchmark. Thank you for that. Now, I would like to go back to your story in terms of, you were a very successful young woman in New York, and you just left that all behind and you chose for something unknown and a lot less safe and secure. And you mentioned the word courage there.
Yes.
And I do believe, kudos for you, it takes a lot of courage to make that kinds of decisions. So How do you build that courage? What is
Mm,
it that can make you do these things, which is exceptional? Because a lot of people already contract only bit that by that idea, giving up my job, giving up my everything that I built, giving up my place in New York, giving up that reputation and go for something unknown. How can you build that courage? How can you build that resilience?
yes, it's such an important question. I remember, even now that I think back, it was more than a decade ago, but I remember when I was trying to make this decision of whether I should leave New York or not. And I was having this conversation with a really close friend of mine. And I remember saying to him, here I am. I'm contemplating moving to India, and it literally feels like I'm jumping off a cliff. I'm jumping into the unknown. I have no idea what's going to happen next. And he said something to me very matter of factly, but that ended up being so profound. It really just shifted everything for me. He looked at me and he said, yes, you're right. You are jumping off a cliff. But you know what? Have faith that once you jump, the universe is going to be there with open hands to catch you as you fall, because the universe always rewards courage.
That's
And
beautiful.
I just looked at him like, wow, where is all this wisdom coming from? But that was the first time in my life that I thought of courage in that way, that
Mm.
it begins first and foremost with that faith that when you venture towards the unknown, yes, it's scary, but there are these unseen forces in the universe that do reward courage, that will clear that path for you. You just have to, I think, as Rumi said, the path is made by walking. That once you start walking, the path will start to clear, but you have to make the decision to start walking. We cannot wait for the path to first appear and then start walking. And so for me,
I
it
love
was about just believing that, yes, things will, having that faith that things will unfold. And the other thing that's always given me a lot of comfort when it comes to really venturing into the unknown is, and I'm a big fan of this work, and I'm sure you would be familiar with his work as well, is Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey. And I remember I first came across Joseph Campbell's work right around this time as well. So everything just somehow magically was falling
it.
into place. And what Joseph Campbell talks about after he studied heroes from all across the world is that there is a pattern to the hero's life. So, yes, it begins with a call to adventure. When you first think of an idea, a dream, a goal that has you so excited that you feel like moving forward. And for me, that call to adventure was, yes, I'm moving back to India and I'm going off on this exploration. That was my call to adventure as well. But, and here's what's really interesting in the hero's journey, and this is true for every hero across time. You start walking, you start moving, following your call to adventure. The very next thing, the very next step in the hero's journey is the refusal, where the hero feels this instinct to say no.
Mhm.
No, this is too scary. No,
Yeah.
I'm not the one who should be doing this. No, this is not the right time. No, what will people think? No, but what if I fail? No, what if I'm ridiculed? And there's so many questions that come up that create resistance. And every hero across time has faced that resistance. And the big reframing that the hero's journey does is that every time you feel that resistance, and we all do, you are then faced with two choices. One is you could feel that resistance and say to yourself, oh, this must mean that I'm not supposed to do this. This must mean I'm not supposed to go forward. And then you not move forward. Or you feel that resistance and you ask yourself, what is this telling me? And what Joseph Campbell says of every hero is the cave that you enter, the cave that you fear to enter, holds the treasure that you seek.
Mhm.
That the very thing that is bringing up all that resistance, right on the other side of that resistance and that discomfort, is the treasure or the transformation, the fulfillment, the purpose, the meaning, the joy that you're seeking. But but one has to go through that cave. There is no other way. So every time in my journey, when once I became aware of this, every time I sensed that discomfort and that all these questions about all these fears that we all experience and all that self-doubt, instead of letting it stop me, I would always look at it as I started looking at it as a sign that, wow, this must tell me that I'm moving in the right direction, because what I want is right on the other side of this discomfort. And so each time I've embraced that, and each time I've done that, it's always materialized into greater personal and professional
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I have to cut one moment because I just got a sign that my computer, I have a problem with my computer, although it's here charging. Just let me make sure that we are not getting out here. I don't know why it's saying this, but I think now it's charging. Okay, my apologies for that. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful story, this hero's journey, and being afraid sometimes and do it anyway. I think overcoming is a important, basic, essential to become. And what I really see happening is that building that courage and building that resilience is only possible when you build those muscles like you already mentioned, and you also do. It is about meditation, it is about mindfulness, it is about basically preparing as much as possible in order to build that resilience, build that strategic agility also when you see things that don't work, when you are afraid, when you don't know, to know deep inside that you can overcome that. I use meditation a lot. I also use breath work a lot. And I can really feel, I'm doing this for a couple of years now, and I also do this together with my clients. I can really feel that it is strengthening this resilience muscle. And that, of course, life is throwing curveballs at us. It's what happens, but it's the way that we respond on it and the way that we have prepared ourselves to respond on what is coming at us that makes a very big difference. I'm very happy that you also mentioned this mindfulness and this meditation already, because, and for everybody, I believe some people say meditation is not something for me. I heard recently that there are like 70 different kinds of meditations. So there should be a possibility for you to find one that is working for you. And if it's not, then try something else. There's so many ways to build that resilience and agility and courage muscle, basically, by taking care of ourselves. And I don't mean with self-care, go to the sauna once per week. I'm talking about intentionally building these muscles in order to reach our full capacity of agility and resilience, right?
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful. So, if you would give like your best advice to women watching this, and you have already brought so many golden nuggets and beautiful metaphors. But just imagine women watching this and say, yes, this is really resonating. And I will really start doing this. I will build that courage. I will search for my values. I will choose my own music to dance on. What's your best advice to take that first action for women who are really motivated to do this?
Here's what I would say, and this also connects back to the question which you asked earlier on how one can build courage. My biggest advice, and this is something that has served me in the best way possible, would be to practice self-compassion, which is, again, a cornerstone of living mindfully or living consciously. Now, why do I say self-compassion? I say this for a few reasons. One, our conditioning as women is we tend to be very hard on ourselves because we're conditioned to embrace perfection and these really high standards and this feeling of I can do it all and I should do it all and I should be a superwoman and I must be juggling 10 balls in the air at all times, and if I drop a single ball then it means I'm not good enough. And so we're always benchmarking ourselves against some really punishing standards. And that is where I think self-compassion can really come in and help us affirm ourselves and build ourselves in such a healthy way where you are treating yourself like you would your best friend or a loved one, and you are filling your cup, you are affirming yourself and building yourself up to an extent where you no longer need validation from others because you're validating yourself over and over again. Affirming your values on a daily basis is a really powerful way of doing this. There are other ways of doing this as well, but self-compassion, I also want to add, is, for me, the way I see it is that self-compassion and courage, they're two sides of the same coin. Because again, coming back to courage, why do we sometimes resist moving forward with something where we know it's important to us, but for whatever reason it scares us and we have all these questions about what could go wrong, etc. It's usually what we're consciously telling ourselves is, oh, but what if people judge me? Or what if there's failure or ridicule? But really, if you take the judgment of others away, many times it's not the people around us that are judging us. It's that voice inside our heads that's beating us up, telling us, no, how could you fail? Or why did you not do this? Or why did you say this? Or why did you not say this? And there are all these questions. And for courage, and now so many studies have been done on this concept called psychological safety, that organizations where there is this culture of psychological safety, where there is this sense that I can show up, I can say anything, do anything, and I'm not going to be judged, I'm not going to be ridiculed, those organizations are more innovative. They are taking more, that's where you find people and teams are taking more risks. Now you turn that completely on the inside. We need that same kind of psychological safety within our minds, because in the absence of other people, there's still that critic inside that's judging you. And the thing that's going to assure you that, yes, you can take this action, and even if you fail, it's okay, you have a soft place to land, is that internal psychological safety that you create with self-compassion when you give yourself the assurance that, you know what, I'm going to try this out. And even if it doesn't go well the first time around, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm only going to pat myself on the back and tell myself, wow, you did it. You took that first brave step. And the more and more we speak to ourselves in that way, the more we build up this compassionate voice, the more we create this internal psychological safety that supports courageous action. For everything, I would say, for me, all roads lead back to self-compassion, and then self-compassion is further strengthened by mindfulness practices, because mindfulness practices support living without judgment, whether it's judgment of others or judgment of self. So my biggest advice would be self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Above all else, before all else, be kind to yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this advice, Bhavna, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom. It is absolutely inspirational and encouraging, and I am so grateful that I can bring it here also as a documentation, as a manifestation for the book. And I wish you luck with all your other ventures. I really support them. Kudos for you because what you're doing is very important. It's very clear that you have a definition of success that is way beyond your own person because you do so many things, you have so many projects for others. And I am absolutely grateful that you are here with us to support the book also. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this conversation and all the best to you. I think you're doing such amazing work, as you said, in co-creating with others to really support and empower and uplift as many people around you as possible. So I think kudos to you and all the best to you as you continue to do this powerful work.